Welcome, everyone. This is the Rotary eClub of Silicon Valley, and we have got all kinds of cool things to share with you today, like we do every week. Our goal is to inspire our members and our guests to see possibilities they haven't seen before, especially with regard to service to others. Rotary's motto is service above self, and we love to find people who can tell us about the ways that we can extend our ability to serve others. As a club, we also have a special set of focuses on innovation, entrepreneurship, and education. And when we talk to our speakers, we often ask, is there something about, your story that might connect with this? And today you're gonna get plenty of that. We are very happy to have with us today Lori Nelson of SheHeroes. And Lori has a background in the theater and in the entertainment business, and is now the executive director of SheHeroes. So we're excited to have her with us. I'm excited to hand it over to her. And Lori, tell us your story. Tell us about the work you're doing with SheHeroes.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Rushton. I am delighted to be here with you. Thank you for the invitation. First of all, I'd like to wish all of you a happy Valentine's Day. Let's bring more love to our world. Yes, and I'm going to be talking about a subject that's very near and dear to my heart, which is SheHeroes, of course. And I've prepared a presentation. I'm going to be talking about SheHeroes, the work that we do, and the landscape of girls in STEM, which is one of the hottest topics out there right now. But in any event, so this is our logo. But what is SheHeroes? Well, we are a nonprofit that our mission is to inspire girls to dream big for their futures. And how do we do that? Well, we primarily operate through a website, and I kind of call it a Netflix for girls because it is full of video profiles of successful women with the concentration of women in STEM careers. And what we're doing is telling women's personal stories of how they got involved in their career, what their journey was from childhood, their stops and starts, their triumphs and failures. So they're very juicy, very inspirational stories and very, very heartwarming. But our website, our materials, by the way, are free for everyone. That's very important to us, that they're always free, and they are designed for use by parents and kids, teachers, after school programs, and career and guidance counselors. So most of what we do here is make videos. And I wanted to show you a little roster. These are some of the people that we have profiled. We always strive for racial diversity and career diversity. So we've got all different kinds of people that have been featured over the years. One of our favorites is Verna Gibbs. She comes to all of our events and the girls absolutely adore her. I don't know how many future surgeons we may have inspired by Verna alone, but I think they're probably significant. So our group was founded 10 years ago by a group of friends who had gone to MIT together, and now they were all raising daughters, and they were just appalled by the lack of role models for their girls out there, and they just decided to put their resources together and do something about it. So when they launched SheHeroes 10 years ago, there was a more broad-based career approach. But in the last several years, we've really begun to focus on STEM because there's an absolute crisis going on in STEM, and you're probably pretty familiar with it. But STEM, of course, is science, technology, engineering, and math. So I think you've all heard the dismal statistic that even though women make up half the workforce, they only hold 24% of the job in STEM. This makes no sense to anybody, anywhere. I don't know how this could even be happening because the STEM graduate is going to make more money. There are more opportunities. STEM fields have done nothing but grow. I think they're the fastest developing job area in our society right now. Starting salaries are higher, and they're the most sought after candidates in the job market when they get out of school. But this is a shocking statistic. In 2016, only 6% of female graduates had a STEM degree. So ever since I've started working at SheHeroes, I've been trying to get to the bottom of this, but both for my own personal edification, but also so that we can better serve our audience. And it's a very kind of murky area here. You can't quite pinpoint it. But as we all know, everything begins at home with the family. And my sister and I just gave baby showers. One was for a boy and one was for a girl. And I can say with absolute confidence that gender bias, gender expectation, gender stereotyping is almost from the moment a baby emerges from the womb. So it's really quite significant, the impact that the family has on a child's ideas and thinking, of course. But what I found, an article that had been published in the New York Times that for me really kind of epitomized the sort of subtle influence that parents and families have on their growing kids. And this study was conducted by an analyst, and he did a study of Google searches. And what he did find was that twice as many parents of sons are twice as likely to Google "Is my son a genius?" than parents of daughters. Parents of daughters, on the other hand, were twice as likely to Google "Is my daughter overweight?" And mostly it's boys that are overweight. But it'd be a mistake to draw a general conclusion that parents for the most part may be more interested in their daughter's appearance than their son's intelligence. That would be a wrong place to start. But I think that this study does really kind of illustrate some of the very subtle influence that is happening in childhood for girls. And then, but the rubber hits the road as soon as they enter school, because now they're exposed to a bigger world. And what we have found is that at the age of 6, girls no longer think that they are as smart as boys. This is a kind of a horrifying, shocking statistic that it was groundbreaking when it was first released in 2017 in the Science Journal. I came across this study when I was watching Megyn Kelly's Sunday night show that she had on 2 years ago. She had come across the study, and what the study found was that boys and girls both think that they are equally smart. By the time they're 6, however, in that 1-year period, girls no longer think that they are as smart as boys. And this is across all demographic groups. It doesn't make any difference where you're from. So this was like a shocking discovery, and Megyn wanted to highlight it. So she brought a group of girls and their parents to her show and asked them the same questions that the study had done. And all the girls in the audience responded exactly as the girls in this study did. So what was heartbreaking, and actually the writers of the study in their own conclusions say that these results are heartbreaking, but what was really awful about this was that Megyn showed the mothers watching their daughters' responses, and they were so utterly shocked and horrified because in their minds they were raising bold, confident, strong girls. And to have their girls exhibit these kinds of like inclinations or prejudices themselves was just absolutely terrible. And Megyn herself, who's one of the biggest media figures out there, she put her own daughter into the experiment. And her husband, Megyn's husband, is a stay-at-home dad. He's a novelist, but Megyn's own daughter thought that her dad was smarter than her mom. So Megyn is now pretty invested in the STEM gap and trying to do something about it. So what happened? Well, the experts have a term for this. They call the confidence of the 5-year-old gender arrogance. And when boys and girls are 5, they both have it in equal measures. But by the time they're 6, girls had begun to start losing their gender arrogance. And they're losing this in a combination of cultural and peer pressures. So if you ask boys and girls who is going to do better in school, boys and girls will both say the girls, because everybody knows that girls work harder. But if you ask who's smarter, both sexes will say the boys are. So this is really concerning to many, many people. I put this squarely in the lap of our princess culture. We've studied this a lot at SheHeroes. My predecessor was actually an expert in this area, but I myself was part of that princess culture back in my day. But girls start watching movies and they start getting ideas of all the exciting world out there, and they're getting it mostly from these kinds of ideals or notions. And a Disney princess today is a very different creature. Most of these heroines are bold and courageous and independent girls, but nevertheless, they're always the prince involved, and there's always hair and pretty dresses and a lot of singing and dancing. So girls just take to the princess culture is so well. I have one in my own family right now who's going through it, and it's just very interesting to behold. But then girls enter middle school, and by now they've been exposed to STEM classes, and they're not feeling all that confident about it. But what we see here in this graph is at the age of 15, it seems to be a nadir where they've really completely lost confidence. It's just been sliding down since they entered grade school. But boys are not experiencing any of that decline. If anything, the boys are getting more confident. So I came across this Microsoft study. That graph just came from that study. Microsoft gathered 6,000 girls together to get to the bottom of what this STEM crisis is. And they did all kinds of studies and all kinds of tablets. But what they concluded was that the two major things that are keeping girls from being interested in STEM, not even in pursuing it so much, is a lack of confidence and a lack of role models in STEM. And in fact, the Microsoft study conclusion was that the most important first step to stop this disinterest is to introduce girls to role models in STEM fields. Well, that was music to my ears because that's what we're all about. So I have adopted this study as my Bible. I refer to it all of the time. It's just a wonderful thing. And what happens, and this is another graph from that study, but what happens with a female role model, everything improves. Girls' confidence goes up. Their understanding of how they can actually tackle going on a STEM career path goes up. And understanding how STEM jobs fit into the world is too. You know, I think most girls, when they think of an engineer, they're thinking of a man in a car factory behind a computer. But if they were thinking of a woman like Sylvia Earle, you know, an ocean scientist who's traveled the world and done amazing things and had extraordinary adventures and dived the deepest of any woman, you know, that's a STEM career too. So we're not really, you know, doing that much of a focus on some of these positive role models. By the time a girl enters high school, she's getting all of her role models from popular culture and what she's watching in media. And we all know what television is like these days. And for every Dana Scully, the heroine of the X-Files, this fierce, capable, confident, intelligent heroine of our time, for every one of those, there's also a gaggle of Kardashians in their ilk that are kind of drowning out those voices. So the Gina Davis Institute is another Bible that I refer to. They've been studying gender bias for 10 years. And what they found is they did a STEM study in 2018. And what they found is that the STEM characters the male characters outnumber women 2-to-1. And that hasn't changed in 10 years. However, it's actually been declining for the last couple of years. But what I found very interesting about Gina's study was that 2/3 of the women working in STEM specifically identified Dana Scully as the role model who gave them the confidence to embark into a male-dominated field. That's very, very telling, and that sends a really powerful message to the people that are making television today about how we need to change some of the things that are doing. And I work in television. So, and then 80% of the girls wanted to see more of these kinds of role models in TV. That takes us right back to SheHeroes. Our demographic is the sweet spot between 10 and 14 years old. Now, girls of any age can watch and enjoy our videos. That goes without saying, I guess. They do not talk down to the girls, but we find that this area is, you know, after the emergence from that whole sort of princessy kind of phase that little girls are going through, and before the really serious pressures that confront girls in high school start to occur. Girls are very much more open and more malleable is not the word, but more adaptive to STEM influences like SheHeroes. So we target everything that we do for girls 10 to 14. and we love this demographic. So I have the, I have the occasion to interact with hundreds of girls every year in my job. And I find this very interesting because, the first question that I will always ask a girl is, have you given any thought to what you'd like to be when you grow up? And for the, there's always a sampling or a sprinkling of the traditional things like teacher and nurse and doctor and all of that. But for me, there's an absolutely disturbing number of girls that want to be a pastry chef on television, a fashion designer, an influencer, a pop star, a rock singer, and they're getting all of this from our culture. So this is a message that SheHeroes really takes to heart of how we can counteract that. So does it work? Well, we did our own focus group in SheHeroes to create our own statistics, and we gathered 90 third graders together, and we showed them pictures of men and women in different careers, and then asked them to identify which would be the job for the man or which would be a job for a woman. And all of the high-powered jobs, both sexes thought that they belonged to the men. And then we showed a SheHeroes video, and after that video, everybody had changed their mind. But what really surprised us about the study was that the attitude change that was the most significant occurred in the boys that were watching the video. So we take this to mean that both girls and boys can really use and benefit from SheHeroes. So that is my presentation. I'm going to end it on a little commercial that I came across while I was putting this material together, because I find it has a very uplifting and inspiring message for the future of girls in STEM.
When I was 70, I looked back on my life and felt proud. I'd helped make the world a better place to live, maybe even for you. I developed a cure that saved millions of lives. I led the space program to establish colonies beyond Earth. I started a national fund for free college education. By the time I was 50, I had toured the country to promote vaccine awareness, taking humanity's first step on Mars reduced school dropouts to almost zero. Reaching this point took a lot of help and a good running start. When I was 30, I helped new moms keep their babies healthy. I designed a new way to alert cities before disasters. I became a professor to inspire young minds. All these possibilities could start now, right here, but only if you help.
I get goosebumps when I watch that video. It just gives me so much hope for the future, because I can picture a world like that, and it will be a better world for everybody. So thank you, Rushton, for letting me make my presentation. And SheHeroes, I believe underneath our screen on the website will be our web address and contact information. But like the little girl in the video said, we need help. So SheHeroes is always asking for help. We'd love for anyone who's interested to get involved with us in any way. If you have a SheHero that you'd like to recommend that we film, and better yet, a company that might be interested in sponsoring that video, we would love to know about it. But of course, we'll take any and all donations at any time, and you can do that very simply and easily right directly on our website. So thank you, Rushton.
Excellent. Thanks, Shags, and thanks, Lori, for a great presentation. I want to make sure that we've got plenty of time for questions. Still some minutes in there. So before I leap in with a question, does any of our group have a comment or question to get things started? Just wave at me if so. All right, Shags.
I've always thought women were smarter than men. I've never really had that gender bias. And I've seen experiences in my life where it's absolutely proven itself, because.
Well, that's a wonderful thing to hear.
Yes. So I fully support it, especially since I had daughters, and they both were excellent students, and they knew it too. So it was good.
And there's that interesting statistic that you had at one point about how people assume girls will be better students. People will assume boys will be smarter. That was a really interesting distinction.
I know, isn't that weird? it mystifies me. I mean, I feel like I've been on an archaeological quest, because for 3 years now, I just am constantly researching, trying to find more refinement to the arguments. You know, what is the problem? How do we make it better? You know, everything is very general, but girls, of course, are very individual. So, you know, how you marry these two together to change the scenario here is really a challenge. But, you know, and there are so many great STEM programs out there right now. But what I always say is that, you know, that's great, but if a girl has no interest in it, then it's not of value. And that's where we are. We are the intersection between a girl's disinterest and interest in STEM by showing these very exciting role models. And also, I think underneath the screen, you'll see that Rushton's included a link to Michelle Lee's video. This is one of my favorite videos because I find it so empowering. Michelle loved to play as a girl and then developed the dream job based on her love of play. So I think that's just a fantastic thing for girls to see, that the most unlikely kinds of ideas can actually lead to your dream job. So
absolutely. I mean, I think getting to see both that video and this recording will plant a lot of good thoughts in people. Speaking of good thoughts, do we have other comments and questions from the group? Yeah, Valerie.
I work with Girls on the Run, or I was a coach for them, and I run with the girls and whatnot. And it was really funny when we started this program because it was only for girls and the boys weren't allowed. So it was a running team that we had on campus. And then some of the parents actually got really upset. And they were like, why are we doing this only for girls and not for boys? And so I was like, well, you know, because girls need more of this social emotional development. We need to, you know, there's more emotional things that go on. So this is a place for them to be really positive. How to counter all of the social things that go on between the ages of third graders and sixth graders, right? But I also read an article a couple of months ago where some universities are getting lawsuits because of the programs and the scholarships that they're offering for women only. And they're saying that this is not fair and it's sexist and that there is gender bias in having more scholarships to have women in STEM. And I was flabbergasted because they're like, the boys are like, this is not fair.
Oh my gosh, it's terrible news.
Right, it was horrible. I was just like, this is incredible because
another step backwards.
Right, like,
well, it speaks to our need to be able to tell the story in powerful ways, right?
mm-hmm.
So, you know, I think a lot of elements of, you know, what we face in society come down to things like I'm looking at this from an individual lens instead of from a group lens, and people have political perspectives that essentially say, I don't want us to look at things from a group lens. And while I don't agree with that personally, I understand that's where they may be coming from. Without a doubt, you know, you think about, you know, Girls on the Run, you know, and a cool project. You know, you were acting as a role model in that setting. And actually, that reminds me, I should introduce the people on the call. So we've got 3 members of our club, me and Shags, our paella master and money coach in the eClub of Silicon Valley. We've got Carl up in Napa, who is not having any problem with the state of his weather up there. So well done for setting that up. Joining us is Dr. Valerie Sun in Southern California, a professor at Cal State Los Angeles, and also a consultant to help with educational programs at different schools. And of course, our speaker, Lori. Lori, you have had a lot of experience in entertainment. You worked with the Shakespeare's Globe Theater in New York, I believe. And please correct me if I have that wrong.
Yes.
But how do those experiences that you've had in the entertainment industry have a connection with what you do as a person running SheHeroes?
Well, as a matter of, well, for me, I mean, I was working in media. I graduated out of the Shakespeare Globe into television and now film, but I've always wanted to just work on things that make a difference in the world. So when SheHeroes offered me the job where I could make videos and help girls, I was all in, and I've just been so excited about that. But actually, during the time of working for SheHeroes, as a media content creator, I'm really upset about this situation. I really want to be doing something about it, because I don't believe that anybody who's doing any of the creation of any of the shows in television even remotely thinks of these things. You know, the female characters that we see in television today that are those kind of STEMmy type people, they're usually the oddball character. They're not like the mainstream character. Like there's that girl on Bones with the tattoos and the crazy hair or whatever. But, you know, I think that efforts, like serious efforts, need to be made to address these kinds of things in media. So maybe a Disney princess will be in the future sort of a STEM sort of kind of gal. I don't know.
Absolutely. So I want to wind down the recording. As always, for our members and guests, one of the reasons to take part in the recording is that even after we stop the recording, we get to keep talking with these cool people who present to us. So lucky for us. But if you are joining us as a member, then make sure you let us know you were here via the attendance form and leave a comment at the bottom. Guests, we ask you to do exactly the same thing. Let us know you're here. And if you are a guest from a Rotary club and you're trying to make up a miss from your own club, then having put your email address in correctly will get you an email that you can pass along to your secretary for that purpose. But still, leave a comment. What did you think of our meeting? What did you think of this presentation? And you know, you can reply to people who have left comments as well. We certainly encourage that. Make sure that in our meeting, you look down below this particular recording and you'll see links so that you can learn more about SheHeroes, how to support them. If your company is one that would be interested in supporting the development of a video that might be the inspiring example that allows a little girl somewhere to fly in ways that not only she but the rest of us need, right? So by all means do that. As we always do, we always like to leave the last word to our speaker. So Lori, I hand it back to you for the finish.
Well, I would just like to say that each of us has the power to inspire girls to dream big for their futures. So whatever girls are in your life, I hope you do that for them. Thank you.
Wonderful, Lori. Thank you again. And everybody, we'll see you next week.